today marks a year since Tshegofatso Pule went missing. The 28-year-old's heavily pregnant body was then discovered a few days later hanging from a tree in Roodepoort. Investigations into her death revealed a complicated web involving her boyfriend allegedly arranging a hit on her. Her family is planning to hold a private ceremony on Saturday at the foot of the tree where she was found hanging. Her uncle, Dumisang Katake, joins us this evening, as well as our reporter, Linda Mnisi, who has been following this case very closely. Good evening to you both. Ntate Katake, thank you so much for your time. Certainly must be a difficult time for the family still. You know, as you look back a year on, I mean, today, you know, last year, you were finding yourself in a position where you did not even know what happened to your niece.
Good evening to you and to the Newsroom Africa viewers. It's been an uphill, it's been a difficult year from the moment Tshegofatso was reported missing until we discovered that she passed on. But of a positive note that we can take from that moment is the way the case has been expedited. A year later, one accused has been sentenced to 20 years. Again, the alleged mastermind is still behind bars, and then we are still attending the trial. I guess from all those developments, as a family, we can take solace from that.
And when you then, you know, look at some of the details that continue to emerge in court about what is said to have happened, you know, that particular night, it must be difficult for the family to hear what would have been some of the last moments of your niece.
It's very difficult to comprehend, especially after the revelation of the WhatsApp messages between the now accused person and the late Tshegofatso. It paints a picture of a person who wanted to escape the responsibility at all costs. And it was simple. The only thing that could have happened under those circumstances was just for him to deny the responsibility of having impregnated Tshegofatso. But to go to those lengths was a bit extreme. I have no idea what could have possessed Mr. Shoba at that time. And the denials that he kept on denying in the court, stating that he didn't know what happened to Tshegofatso. Even the man who picked up Tshegofatso is unknown to him. But the revelation of the technology footprint told us a totally different story. We now know that on the third day, he called Mr. Malipane over 23 times just to make sure that they stuck to the plan as it happened that time.
And Linda, I'd like to bring you into this conversation. Certainly this is one of those stories that has had many twists and turns, and we really saw quite a lot of unexpected information making its way into the public domain.
Absolutely, Bongiwe. And one of the interesting things is that you wouldn't expect, in a criminal case that is, you wouldn't expect such details to come out during the bail application stage. I mean, I remember quite vividly, and it's something that I always refer to, hearing, you know, the state having to stand up and say, Your Worship, please remind the accused that at this stage, he doesn't have to reveal his defense. All he has to do is prove beyond exceptional circumstances that he, you know, has exceptional circumstances, rather. There are existing exceptional circumstances that would warrant him bail. And he went ahead, revealed some of the details around his relationship with Tshegofatso Pule, you know, his relationship with the now convicted murderer. And it's something that you don't expect. So certainly when we go on trial, a lot may also come out.
And Linda, you know, when one then looks at this particular case, you keep hearing about, you know, the relationship with Malipane. Certainly, it looks like there's a lot there, especially given the number of times you know, phone calls were being made to him. At the same time, you then look at, you know, some of the things that would then be said by the two of them in the lead up to this.
Absolutely. And I mean, you would have heard Ntutuko Shoba saying that, well, the first time that he came across Muzigaise Malipane was during the lockdown when he sold illicit alcohol. But when you read the plea, Muzigaisa Malefane's plea, he actually does mention that they met when they were still in high school. In fact, he also still refers him to his name that is known by in the social streets, Pikachu. He says he's also known as Pikachu, which kind of gives you an indication that this perhaps could be, you know, someone that knows this person. But of course, he's come out to say, well, this person has a motive, and that motive I will prove in my subsequent trial.
And you know, Katake, let's then look at tomorrow. You're going to the foot of the tree where your niece was found. Certainly, while details are emerging in court, one might then ask themselves, Hore, possibly is it everything that you're being told about what is said to have happened? Because when you gather at that foot of that tree, certainly one can then wish that that tree could speak, because it would be able to tell the family exactly what happened when she even was found hanging there, and minutes before, what she would have said, maybe pleading for her life.
Yeah, maybe just to correct a few details there, Osbongi. Tomorrow we're not going to the actual tree where Tshegofatso was found hanging. It will happen on Sunday.
Okay.
What's going to happen tomorrow is just the family having a private ceremony on their own, which will start with us visiting the grave of Tshegofatso Pule. It's a close family thing, and that's why we opted to have it privately. But where members of the public will be welcomed, it is on Sunday, where we will be going on the actual tree where Tshegofatso was hanging. Majority of us as family members, it will be for the very first time we set our foot there when it happens on Sunday. I'm not going to actually forecast what will happen. Emotions obviously will be triggered on that day. But we are hoping that in order for us to come to terms with the Tshegofatso's passing, we still have to face the difficult road that she traveled on her last day, on her last hours on this earth. And again, it will also help the family with the closure to go there to confront the demon that was facing Tshegofatso on that particular fateful day when she was shot and ultimately left to be hanging on a tree.
And how does the family feel about the fact that, you know, 2 lives were lost here? Tshegofatso was pregnant, heavily pregnant. I'm sure as a family you were ready to welcome, you know, your grandchild, and there was an excitement, and as there always is, you know, within a family when you know that you're about to get a new addition into the family. Certainly, when you look at what has transpired in court, and only 1 life then is you know, will appear to really be vindicated, if I can use that word. Certainly, it must not sit well with the family to know that this child, this unborn grandchild, was not counted in the murder charges.
Yeah, it's the sad reality of what we're living in, especially here, not only here in South Africa, but throughout the world. Because now the baby could not exist separate from the mother at the time. It's not considered to be a human being. It's actually considered to be a fetus. But reflecting, we had a discussion with the family and reminiscing that the Tshegofatso's baby would have been 11 months old as we speak, and then she would turn a year next month. So all those things have been robbed off the family. The bundle of joy that baby was going to bring to our family. And we already had names for that baby, Kamano and Lesego. So you can just imagine how the family was prepared. There were clothes that were bought for the baby, and then a lot of preparation went ahead before Tshegofatso could actually deliver. But little did we know that she won't live to see that day. So it's something which is very difficult to comprehend as a family, especially realizing that this day the baby would have been 11 months old.
Linda, when you look at Ntutuga Shoba, he continues to maintain his innocence. He continues to say that he, you know, did not even know, as you alluded to earlier on, Mzegayise, until the lockdown. That's when they met and all of that and stuff. But when you then look at, another part of his life, which is his employment that has now been terminated by the JSE, and he had said that he would be challenging this. What do we know about that challenge so far?
Well, at that point, what we know is that he had only indicated that he would challenge that decision by the JSC. You'll remember that it came just shortly after we had heard in court that one of the phones that he used to contact Malefane was a JSC landline. So the JSC was unable to confirm if this was the reason why he, was dismissed. But we heard in court that he was charged with incapacity, so he couldn't perform his duties since he's in prison. So essentially what we know at this point is that the intention was to appeal that decision, but seeing that he's still in prison, that, application is still on hold at this point. So there are no new details in as far as how that, application has gone. I had an opportunity to speak to his previous legal team, and they said they were not in a position to disclose where exactly, that process is.
All right. And Ntate Dumisang, when really one looks at what has come out from the case, certainly as a family, you may still have some questions that maybe still need answers about really what would have happened to your niece. What would be some of those questions tonight?
The big question is why. Why was somebody willing to go to those lengths to the extent that even when the planning was done, the intention was to make it look like Tshegofatso has committed suicide and being hung from the bridge of Maritzburg. So the big question to us is why? Why did you decide to do what you did to the extent of you going to solicit somebody who will come and kill on your behalf in exchange for money? Was it not wise for you just to deny pregnancy and let everybody carry on with their life? But even though we may ask all these questions, the only person who has those answers is Mr. Choba himself. So all we are left doing is just wondering at this point in time.
And he continues to plead his innocence in court. How do you feel about that as a family?
I'll be honest with you. For us, it comes as a person who has no consideration, none whatsoever. And also the person who is very arrogant to come across, despite the fact that there's this evidence that is mounting against him, but he still maintains his innocence about this whole ordeal. Despite the fact that there were revelations of the WhatsApp messages and the telephone call between himself and the actual killer, he still pleads his innocence. So to me, it's just a person who just lacks consideration, and the person who has gone to extra lengths to actually refuse to take responsibility for all these mishappenings.
As a final question from us tonight, what are some of the things that you miss most about Tshegofatso?
When she utters the word, yes, girl. And when she dances, when she smiles, and every time when we're having a gathering, she would be the one to bring light into the room, just like her mom did. Every time we would be together as a family, you would hear Tshegofatso telling you about the functions that she has attended and then the bubbles that she had or shampopos that she had. She really liked nice life. So all those things are things that have been robbed off from us.
I tell you what, we can even see from some of the visuals that are playing on screen tonight, a really full of life young woman, certainly robbed of her life and really in the most brutal of ways. Linda, as a final question, what can we then expect in the next court appearance?
So what we do understand right now, Bunga, is that that particular case has moved to the High Court. You'll remember the last appearance at the Roodepoort Magistrates Court had to do with him being kept in a single cell. So he got that order to be kept at a single cell. He, in fact, did not want to be moved to the Johannesburg High Court, citing fears for his life. He said that he feared for his life and that there were voice notes that were allegedly coming from Muzigaisa Malefane threatening him. So they had an official from the prison itself explaining that these are two separate buildings and that Malefane would not have access to him. So right now, all roads lead to the trial, which is set down for the 4th of October.
All right, Linda, and we certainly know that you'll be watching that story very closely. That's Linda Mnisi here, our reporter here at Newsroom Africa. Ndate Katake, thank you so much for your time. That's Tshegofatso Pule's uncle, Dumisang Katake, who was joining us for this particular conversation. Let's take a recap.